guy.
Beg me for your life.
Gotham, all new next Thursday on Fox.
Welcome back, guys. So before there was that Batman-Jim Gordon relationship, you know, the one from most movies and TV series where they're friends, Jim Gordon is trying to help Batman and Batman is trying to help Jim Gordon, and where James Gordon uses that big bat signal in the sky to call on Batman for help, there was that other relationship. So pretty much before all of that, there was year one, where Batman is trying to do his thing, where Jim Gordon is trying to do his thing, and once he gets wind of that guy in a cape and a mask, he goes trying to figure out who he is, because while he does respect what he's doing and the reasons he's doing it for, he's trying to instill justice in a very corrupt Gotham. He does dislike the fact that he's a vigilante, and a vigilante is a criminal in the eyes of the law. Now, considering that I did know in advance that this season is going to be both Long Halloween and year one from the comics, and considering that I did know that this arc in specific is going to be more year one than Long Halloween, I do focus while watching each and every episode on finding year one Easter eggs, and this one did have like 2 or 3 of them, and I will be discussing them in a moment here. But to get started though, this episode sort of had a theme to its name. It was all about needing help and asking for it, and knowing how to ask for it actually. So we've got Bruce Wayne trying to ask Alfred for help, we've got him trying to ask Selina for help, and failing on both accounts. But we've got him as well changing his methodology and asking for help, especially when it comes to Alfred, trying to show him that he's actually changed, rather than just using the words, "I've changed." It's not about words, it's about actions, all of that good stuff that leads us into seeing Bruce Wayne become Batman or start his year one journey. And right there, during that fundraiser sequence, you've got yourself your first Batman year one Easter egg, because that scene with Jim Gordon chasing down that person in a mask and a cowl is pretty much right out of year one. It is pretty much part of the major focus of the year one arc in the comics. But while we're still on the subject of Bruce Wayne and Batman, I've always indicated that I've had mixed feelings about the portrayal of Bruce Wayne on the series. I've never really found myself in love with how the character is portrayed on the series. I've always had problems with it. I mean, sometimes it's really well portrayed and well written and all of that good stuff, but on the other hand, there are all those times in which the character is really poorly written and poorly portrayed. But this time around though, it's been done a lot better. The transformation from moody, bitchy, whiny Bruce Wayne into wanna-be-a-hero Bruce Wayne has been really well done. Now we've got the introduction of this all-new Poison Ivy, all-powerful, all-advanced, all-comic book-ish Poison Ivy to thank for all of that, with all that she did to Bruce Wayne as well on last week's episode. But nonetheless, it was all well written and all well acted and all well done. Now, I did love as well how Alfred didn't just run back into servicing and aiding Bruce, but instead kind of rejected his apology, rejected his veiled apology, and rejected aiding and helping him. I do believe it was unexpected, and I do believe as well that it did aid in the transformation of Bruce Wayne from that person we've been seeing over the past few episodes and into this whole new person that we saw by the end of this episode. But back to speaking of help and asking for help, I think that we all did know that at some point Jim Gordon and Harvey Bullock are gonna go back to becoming this GCPD power couple, and this is basically what the end of the episode is kind of leading into. So we've got Gordon confiding in Bullock, telling him all about Pig and Sophia, how she hired him, how she killed him, and how he ended up covering it all up. But as per the usual, we're getting all this admission of guilt, all this admission that he does need help because of one of the 2 usual Gordon triggers. Now the first one is usually Lee, but the second one is his self-righteousness mixed up with a little bit of wanting to rise in the ranks within the GCPD in specific and Gotham in general. This one though was because of that Lee trigger, knowing that Sophia would go to any length to get him under her thumb, knowing that Sophia did not just do this out of animosity for Lee, but out of animosity for him, out of wanting him to suffer. He's just decided that he's all done with Sophia. He cannot take it anymore. He cannot be under her thumb. He cannot just let her do whatever she wants because he wants to hide a certain truth. And he confides in Harvey, he decides if she did this to Lee, I'm gonna take her down, and that is what he's planning to do. Now, the kind of length that Jim is planning to go to in order to take down Sophia and in order to stop Sophia is pretty much gonna be a reversal of what he did on the first arc of the season. So on the first arc, he went out of his way to get Sophia back to Gotham in order to take down the Pax Penguina, or to take down Penguin. And based on next week's trailer, it seems he's planning to do the exact opposite this time around. He's gonna ally himself with Penguin in order to take down Sophia. And yes, this guy never seems to learn. But part of the build-up towards that moment with Harvey and Jim at the end of the episode was that entire conversation that went down when Ivy had control of Harvey, because that conversation kind of had them let out their feelings towards one another. All the bad feelings, all the bad blood was just out on the table, and they were discussing it out loud. And even though Harvey was pretty much under the control of Ivy throughout that conversation, and even though he was pretty intoxicated by her fake charm, that was a very good use of that plot tool in order to achieve the ending of the episode. It did not just build up randomly, Harvey would not forgive Jim randomly, but instead, it built up over the course of the entire episode. I did love, though, the return of Harvey as this comedic relief throughout the entire episode, rather than just through bits and pieces of the episode. But before I move to the highlight of the theme of the episode, before we get to that big ask of help that accompanied the biggest twist on the episode, let us just talk some Ivy and Selina. Now, so far, Ivy is the biggest threat on this arc of the season. So far, Ivy is threatening the lives of everyone, and she does have the power to do it. Because every time she needs to attack, every time she needs to get someone down, she kind of creates her own army, and she does it just by using those plant pheromones of hers. So she is not just powerful because she can kill people instantly by blowing into a flower, but rather because she could pretty much mind control a whole bunch of people, and at the same time, like she did last week with the GCPD, the entirety of the GCPD. But this as well is basically where the first plot hole of the episode comes up, or the one plot hole that I noticed on this episode kind of comes up. So obviously, Ivy is pretty powerful. Ivy is one of the strongest people in Gotham, if not actually the strongest at the moment. And she does make her existence public knowledge as of this episode. And she does make her plans as well public knowledge as of this episode. And what does she plan on doing? She plans on giving Gotham back to the plants, the entire city back to the plants, which, as indicated on this episode, means she plans on killing every single living person in Gotham. Yet there is this one little thing I can't shake, the fact that Sophia goes after Lee instead of actually focusing on the person who's acting like she's the Queen of Gotham when she is supposedly the Queen of Gotham. Now, since the beginning of the season, Sophia Falcone has been built as this extremely intelligent person, this very smart person, the person who managed to play everyone over the course of the first arc of the season, including a long list like Victor Zsasz and Professor Pig, but on the top of that list we'll always have Jim Gordon and Oswald Cobblepot. Now, the fact that someone this smart, someone who's been portrayed as very intelligent since the beginning of the season, is letting Gotham fall prey to someone like Ivy Pepper is kind of weird. It just does not add up. So while the show is trying to present us with multiple antagonists and kind of relate each of these antagonists to one protagonist or to a certain character, it is kind of failing at tying all the stories together in a certain manner, in a manner that makes a lot more sense. Now, I'm not saying it's a mess, and I'm not saying that they're failing on that front all across the board, but they're kind of failing on that front when it comes to the character of Sophia, which I think is extremely bad because they've made Sophia into some sort of a core character, a core villain, and they do have to abide by what they kind of built for her. But while we're still on the subject of Ivy, here's the second Easter egg from the Year 1 comic book arc. Selina going all hero in order to save everyone. That is what Selina does on the Year 1 comic book arc. Granted, it's inspired by Bruce Wayne doing his Batman shit all over the place, but nonetheless, it is what she does over there. Now, that entire Selina Kyle versus Ivy Pepper moment was really well done. I loved every little bit of it. I loved every little bit of the conversation. I loved the entire fight between them. I loved Selina Kyle's use of the whip on Ivy. But more importantly, I did love how it kind of foreshadows the possibility that Selina Kyle might end up being the downfall of Ivy, which I'm really interested to watch over the course of the next few episodes, like find out how they plan on doing this and how they plan on taking Ivy out of the equation. But to get to that final point on this video, we've got Oswald and we've got Nygma, and the interaction between both is amazing, even though very short-lived on this episode. So this entire call for help thing started on last week's episode. It is going to extend to next week's episode as well, because on the trailer we do see Selina ask Bruce for help. But to focus on Oswald and Nygma, on last week's episode, the Riddler did leave Oswald a clue when Nygma visited him at Arkham. And the smart villain that we knew Oswald to be did understand what was going on, so he sent this letter to Nygma, a letter that is sort of encoded that only the Riddler could read, that only the Riddler could understand. Hence, there was that riddle that we kept listening to throughout the episode. Who's got two eyes but can't see what's right in front of him? That would be Edward Nygma. So the Riddler understood the message, understood the letter, and kept pushing Nygma towards going to Arkham Asylum on his own volition and giving himself up. Now I really loved this twist, because simply put, it's like this. On last week's episode, and in a very indirect manner, the Riddler asks Penguin for help. On this week's episode, the Penguin sends asking the Riddler for help. Nygma goes to Arkham Asylum to give himself up, to ask for help for his entire situation. But finally though, Oswald walks in asking the Riddler for help, and he does wake the Riddler up in the process, or he does give him control over Nygma in the process. And in that manner, he just granted the Riddler the help he came asking for on last week's episode. But at the same time, he did get the help that he needed and that he sent asking for early on in this episode. Now that kind of writing for these two characters, that kind of acting that they put into their characters, is basically why I love these two, why I think these two are the best written characters on the series and from the very beginning. But that being said though, let me know in the comments what you thought of this episode, let me know what you think is going to happen on next week's episode, if you've got any theories on how all of this is going to work out. Let me know as well if you liked this video by dropping it a much appreciated like, and make sure you subscribe and enable notifications as well if you did like its content. Until I see you next time though, thank you all for tuning in and have a great day.